Welcome to another deep dive on the Biz English channel. We are just thrilled to have you with us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm really excited about this one.
Me too. And hey, before we jump into things today, just a quick reminder for everyone listening to hit that subscribe button, drop a like, and please share your opinions in the comment section as we go. We really love hearing from you.
Definitely.
So usually when we think about computer programming, we picture these incredibly complex lines of code, right?
Yeah, matrices of green text or whatever.
Exactly. But at the very foundation of any operating system, there's this startup sequence. It's a super specific, highly rigid set of commands that essentially tells the machine, hey, we're turning on now. Load these basic rules so the entire system doesn't just crash.
Right, it establishes the operational parameters.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the baseline protocol that makes all the future, way more complex applications actually run smoothly.
Right.
Because if that initial sequence is corrupted in any way, the system just panics and freezes up.
Completely freezes. And today, we're actually looking at the human equivalent of that startup sequence.
Which is such a great way to frame it.
Yeah, we're talking about the high-stakes, totally unwritten code of workplace greetings in English. I mean, if you've ever experienced a conversation that just sort of derailed before it even really started, this is exactly why.
It really is the ultimate high-stakes environment. I think we tend to dismiss greetings as just, mere polite noises we make to fill the silence.
Just background noise, yeah.
Exactly. But functionally, a greeting is a sociolinguistic contract. Whether you're walking into a massive industry conference, joining a high-level video call, or just bumping into someone by the office water cooler.
Your greeting immediately transmits data.
Massive packets of data. It signals your professional awareness, your emotional intelligence, and your understanding of corporate hierarchy.
Which means the difference between a successful networking moment that lands you a promotion and an awkward silence that makes everyone stare at their shoes.
Ugh, the worst.
The absolute worst. But it really comes down to executing the right verbal commands for the right context. So let's start at the absolute beginning of any professional relationship.
The first impression.
Right. Meeting someone completely new. Now, the conventional wisdom says you use a very specific three-part formula, right? A formal greeting, your name and affiliation, and a formal question.
That's the baseline, yeah.
But I have to push back on this right out of the gate. I mean, if I walk into a modern, hyper-casual tech startup in Silicon Valley and say, "Good morning, I'm Paul, Vice President of Sales. How do you do?"
You're going to get some weird looks.
Exactly. I'm going to look completely out of touch. Isn't that formula just way too rigid for today's workforce?
Well, that is a fantastic point, but we really have to separate the underlying architecture from the surface vocabulary.
Okay, what do you mean by that?
So the three-part formula isn't about using Victorian English. It's about providing the necessary data points to establish a baseline of trust. Because, ambiguity is the enemy of a new relationship.
Ambiguity breeds anxiety.
Precisely. When you meet a new client or a stranger at a conference, your goal is to map out the sociolinguistic coordinates for both of you.
Right.
So the formula greeting, affiliation, inquiry, it scales to any environment. In that tech startup you mentioned, it just sounds like, "Hi, I'm Dave from the dev team. How are you?"
Oh, I see. You are still executing all three parts of the code.
Exactly. You're just using casual syntax.
So you're essentially handing them this structural hook they need to formulate a response, like a verbal handshake.
A verbal handshake is a great way to put it.
You're giving them your specific ecosystem coordinates, like dev team, so they don't have to guess where you fit into the picture.
You are lowering their cognitive load, basically.
Yeah.
And this actually brings us to a really critical rule of the startup sequence. You must avoid informal inquiries in this first encounter.
Like saying, "How's it going?"
Yes. A lot of professionals conflate "how are you" with "how's it going?" or "what's up?"
I mean, to a lot of people, those phrases mean the exact same thing, right? They're just the warm-up before the real meeting starts. Why is one a lifeline and the other a trap?
Well, it comes down to the presumption of familiarity and what sociologists call power distance.
Okay.
"How's it going?" assumes a level of intimacy that simply hasn't been earned yet.
Yeah.
It implies a shared history, or at least a lateral status.
Whereas "how are you" is different.
Right. "How are you?" is structurally polite. It maintains this respectful, neutral distance. When you use overly casual language with a stranger, you're essentially asking for root access to a server you just pinged for the very first time.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it triggers this subtle, often subconscious alarm in the other person that you lack professional boundaries.
You're trying to skip the mandatory boot sequence.
Exactly.
Well, before we move on to the psychology of how you actually survive being on the receiving end of these introductions, we want to hear from you right now. Think about your own career. What is the most awkward, completely derailed greeting you've ever experienced at work? Did someone try to skip the startup sequence? Pause this video, scroll down to the comment section, and tell us the story.
I really can't wait to read those. The missteps are genuinely where the most fascinating data lies.
Absolutely. Okay, so we've covered initiating the sequence. Let's look at the other side of the equation.
The return volley.
Right. Someone has just walked up, executed the perfect three-part formal introduction, and handed you their structural hook. The cognitive load transfers instantly to you. You have to return the volley.
And this is where so many people freeze, they drop the ball, and just ruin the interaction.
So how do we not drop the ball?
Returning the volley requires its own distinct architecture. A proper response begins with a reciprocal acknowledgement like, "Nice to meet you."
Sure.
But the golden rule, the non-negotiable step that secures the relationship, is that you must immediately insert their name into your response.
Immediately.
Immediately. "Nice to meet you, Dave."
I want to focus on the mechanics of why that is actually so difficult. Because think of human short-term memory like a computer's RAM, right?
Okay, I like where you're going with this.
When a stranger walks up and says, "Hi, I'm Dave," your brain temporarily stores Dave in its active buffer. But almost instantly, your internal processor spikes to 100% capacity because you are internally panicking about what you're supposed to say next.
You're just thinking about yourself.
Exactly. So if your only response is just a generic "nice to meet you," that RAM buffer gets wiped by your own anxiety, you will absolutely forget their name 5 seconds later.
That is the perfect analogy. Speaking their name aloud is the save command.
The save command.
Yes. You aren't just flattering them by acknowledging their identity. I mean, you are utilizing the psychological power of repetition to hardwire that data into your own short-term memory.
Nice to meet you, Dave.
It forces your brain to actually process the information rather than just letting it wash over you.
Right. And then you have to follow up with your own data packet, your name, and your role. Okay, but here's the thing. The real masterclass happens right after that exchange. Because we often see situations where two people successfully trade names and titles, and then they just stand there in terrifying silence.
The dead air.
Yeah, because the startup sequence is over and nobody knows how to launch the actual conversation.
Well, that dead air is incredibly common because the formal introduction is inherently unnatural. The solution here is what we call an observational hook.
What does that look like?
Think about a successful exchange at, say, a company networking event. One person says, "Hi, I'm Amber from marketing." The other responds, "Nice to meet you, Amber. Shelley Davis, sales."
Okay, standard formal exchange.
Right, but then Shelley adds, "Quite the setup they have for us here, isn't it?"
That addition at the end, quite the setup here, isn't it? That is brilliant because it's not actually about the catering or the room at all.
No, not at all. It's a linguistic escape hatch.
Right.
It acts as a pressure release valve. By making a really benign observation about their shared physical environment, Shelley successfully transitions them out of the rigid, high-stakes startup sequence.
And into a safe, neutral flow.
Exactly. She removes the pressure of the formal introduction and invites Amber to step into an actual conversation on equal footing.
It's so elegant. You acknowledge the protocol, run the commands, and then immediately pivot to shared humanity.
Exactly.
And hey, if you are finding these breakdowns of conversational mechanics helpful, make sure you are subscribed to the Biz English channel so you never miss a deep dive. We really love dissecting the hidden rules behind everyday interactions.
Understanding those micro-interactions is so important. I mean, it's often the difference between being perceived as just technically competent versus having true leadership presence.
Totally. But the ecosystem of a workplace changes pretty rapidly. So let's say you've survived the formal introduction, the ice is broken. Fast forward 3 or 4 weeks. You now see Amber from marketing or Dave from the dev team every single morning by the coffee machine. If you keep using that 3-part formal structure, "Good morning, I am still Shelley from sales. How are you today?" You are going to sound like a malfunctioning robot.
Yeah, that would be incredibly weird. The operational parameters have to shift.
So how do they shift?
Well, the rigid structure melts away because the baseline of trust has already been established. The language evolves to reflect the new, established relationship.
Makes sense.
So when you're dealing with peers you see regularly, the formal vocabulary is replaced by shorter, punchier alternatives. Hello becomes hey or just morning.
Right. You trim the fat because the RAM already has the data saved. You don't need to remind your desk mate who you are or what department you work for.
Exactly. You just jump straight to the inquiry. And this is where phrases like, how's it going? What's up? Or what's new? Finally unlock.
They finally unlock.
Yeah, and they serve to reinforce the social fabric of the in-group. By shifting to informal language, you're signaling comfort and a shared environment.
It's an acknowledgement that you're both navigating the same corporate trenches.
Right.
I do see a massive potential hazard here, though. Let's talk about the tricky sociolinguistics of hierarchy.
Okay, let's do it.
Say I'm waiting for the elevator, and the CEO of the company walks up. Technically, I know him. Like, we were introduced a year ago. I've been at the company a while.
Right.
But if I turn to the CEO and say, hey, David, what's up?
Hmm.
That feels like a catastrophic syntax error.
Oh, absolutely.
Even though I know him, using lateral in-group language with someone who holds ultimate power over my career just feels incredibly dangerous.
Because it is. Your instinct is identifying a major clash in power dynamics there. Language dictates the culture of a workplace, but it also enforces the hierarchy.
Right.
Shifting to hey and what's up
Yeah.
makes a linguistic claim of lateral status. It says, we are peers. If you use that with a CEO or a senior partner, when that lateral status hasn't actually been established,
It can severely backfire.
severely, it's almost always interpreted as a lack of respect for the chain of command.
Okay, so what is the play then? Because you obviously can't go back to the robotic formal greeting from day one. But you can't be their best buddy in the elevator either. You're just stuck in this weird linguistic purgatory.
You deploy a hybrid approach. You blend informal warmth with formal respect.
Oh, okay, give me an example.
So you might shorten the greeting, but maintain the formal inquiry. For example, morning, David. How are you today?
Ah, I see. You drop the title, and you use the casual morning, which shows you belong to the company culture.
Exactly.
But you keep the respectful distance of, how are you, instead of the overly familiar, what's up?
It demonstrates high emotional intelligence. I mean, it shows you understand the relaxed culture of the environment, but you simultaneously respect the vertical hierarchy.
You are adjusting the conversational algorithm based on the user permissions of the person standing right in front of you.
That's exactly what you're doing.
Yeah, that is so fascinating. But navigating the greeting is really only half the battle of the hallway pass, right? Once we enter this informal territory with our actual peers, the questions change, which means the answers are forced to change.
And this is an absolute minefield.
Totally. This is where not native English speakers, and honestly native speakers who just haven't had their morning coffee yet, frequently trigger alarms.
Well, the structure of your response in casual small talk is entirely dependent on the very first word of the question you're asked.
Right.
The listener has to parse the syntax instantly. Is it a how question or is it a what question?
The command line errors, I love this part. If a coworker asks you, what's up? And you reply, good, it creates this jarring cognitive dissonance.
It really does.
It's like typing a text command into a calculator. The listener's brain actually stutters for a fraction of a second because they asked for one type of data and you handed them something entirely incompatible.
Right. It totally derails the rhythm of the hallway chat.
So let's break down the mechanics of why that stutter happens.
Sure. So if a colleague asks a how question, like how's it going or how's things, they are grammatically asking for a state of being.
State of being.
Right. Your answer must reflect your condition. So valid responses are good, not too bad, or the classic English idiom, hanging in there.
Okay, but if they ask a what question like what's up or what's new, they're asking for a quantity or for information.
Exactly. Which means your answer must deliver information. The standard safe response is a quantity like not much, or you can provide a really brief piece of data about your current status. Like, just finishing up that quarterly report, what about you?
Right, so answering good to what's up fundamentally breaks the linguistic contract.
Yes, it completely breaks it.
You know, I want to dive deeper into the psychology of one specific response to the how question because I think it reveals so much about office culture.
Oh, which one?
The hanging in there response. If someone asks, how's it going? And a coworker replies, hanging in there. On a literal level, it's functionally identical to saying not too bad. But sociologically, it carries so much more weight, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely. It is essentially a sanctioned microexpression of dissent.
I love that phrase.
Well, hanging in there carries this highly relatable undertone of workplace solidarity. The corporate environment inherently requires us to mask our fatigue.
Yeah, we are expected to be productive and positive all the time.
Right. But by using that specific idiom, you're acknowledging that work is stressful, the deadlines are tight, and we are all exhausted, but you are surviving.
It's incredible. By deploying those three words, you are essentially signaling to your coworker, hey, I am experiencing the exact same corporate friction you are, and I'm pushing through.
Yes.
It bypasses the need for a 20-minute venting session and just builds immediate camaraderie. It's like the shared trauma of the 9 to 5 wrapped up in a polite idiom.
It acts as a sociolinguistic pressure valve. It allows employees to express difficulty without violating the professional requirement to remain composed.
And it actually makes me wonder about our listeners' own algorithms. So we want to know, what is your go-to response when a coworker asks, how's it going?
Yeah, I'm curious about this too.
Are you eternally optimistic and always answer great? Are you a neutral, not too bad person?
Hmm.
Or do you lean into that workplace solidarity and use hanging in there? Let us know down in the comments.
Analyzing the frequency of those responses can actually give you a remarkably accurate read on the morale of a specific corporate culture.
Oh, without a doubt. I mean, if the whole floor is hanging in there, management might have a serious problem.
Yeah, probably.
Well, we have covered a massive amount of ground today. We started at the rigid startup sequence of first impressions and navigated all the way to the secret codes of break room solidarity.
We really have decoded the hidden algorithms of workplace interactions.
We really have.
I mean, if we trace the journey, we saw why the structured, data-heavy introductions are sociologically necessary to build trust, right?
Yeah.
And to prevent the anxiety of unearned intimacy.
Right. And we explored the cognitive load of the return volley. How immediately using someone's name acts as a save command for your short-term memory buffer.
And then we broke down the transition into the in-group, how adjusting your language from formal to informal signals shared lateral status.
And why applying that lateral language to a CEO causes a hierarchical syntax error.
Exactly. And finally, we navigated the command line errors of the hallway pass, distinguishing between the crucial how versus what inquiries.
And the subtle power of idioms that build corporate solidarity.
Right. By understanding these linguistic mechanics, you aren't just memorizing vocabulary. I mean, you possess the actual blueprints to navigate the power dynamics of any professional environment.
It's like we've handed you the administrator passwords to the entire office building.
It really is a profound level of access.
Yeah.
But I do want to leave you with a deeper question to ponder, circling back to our initial analogy of the startup sequence.
Okay, what is it?
Well, we know that the way we first greet someone acts as the baseline protocol that sets the rules for that entire relationship going forward, right?
Right.
So, is it possible that a poorly chosen, overly casual what's up to the wrong senior manager on your first day could permanently set a ceiling on how seriously you are taken in that role?
Oh, wow.
Can a corrupted startup sequence in a professional relationship ever truly be rebooted? Or are you locked into those restricted user permissions forever? It's something to think very carefully about the next time you initiate that verbal handshake.
That is a brilliant, slightly terrifying, but incredibly important thought to chew on. Your initial words might literally be setting the ceiling on your own potential.
It's entirely possible.
Well, that wraps up today's deep dive on the Biz English channel. We sincerely hope you found these insights valuable for navigating your own career, mastering the power dynamics of your office, and, of course, avoiding those painful elevator silences.
It's been a real privilege unpacking the mechanics of language with all of you.
If you want to keep leveling up your professional communication and mastering the unwritten codes of the workplace, please hit that subscribe button, give this video a like, and don't forget to keep the conversation going in the comments section. We read every single one, and your experiences always add incredible value to our community. Thank you so much for spending your time with us today, and we'll see you on the next deep dive.